Today's behind the scenes, I actually want to talk about a very interesting concept as a follow-up from a video I did yesterday. I don't know how many of you saw the video I did on what they're calling the Asbury revival going on in at Asbury University in Kentucky. But I talked about how it was linked with this massive religious renewal that's going on all over the world, a religious renewal, actually, the likes of which we've never seen before. And one of the things that we have to understand why this is happening, and this kind of links back to our discussion on, I believe it was Monday, on paradigm shifts and the whole issue of anomalies in paradigm shifts, the role that anomalies play in paradigm shifts. A lot of scholars have written about the concept of the sacred, particularly in relation to the modern world. And this is a very good one by Gordon Lynch, the British scholar. By sacred, we refer to those rules, understandings, and goals considered absolute and unquestionable, without which there can be no social order. So when the concept first came out, it came from Durkheim, Emile Durkheim, at the turn of the 20th century. And he used it, the sacred, in relation to the world's great religions. He even used it in indigenous, religions among Aboriginal tribes and the like, something that never gave birth to massive civilizations like Christianity or Islam or something like that. But he tended to use the term sacred to analyze what it is that religion did in a society. And for him, it created social order. But he seemed to have thought that you can have social order without the sacred, and he looked at the modern world as an example of that. Scholars since Durkheim have thrown that away, and they recognize that the modern world has every bit the sacralized rules, understandings, goals, beliefs, dogmas that any religion, any classical religion does. So much so you even have some scholars that basically argue that we are, like Bill Kavanaugh, that we are religious. We're inherently religious. Secularism is a religion. I mean, it's been recognized as such by the Supreme Court in a decision, I forget, in the 1960s or 70s, that it was, in fact, secular humanism was a religion. Regardless, secular society, modern society does have a sacred. It's sacralized, for example, science. When we hear the term science is settled, or the phrase science is settled, that's a confession of faith. There's nothing scientific about that phrase. You know that. As a matter of fact, as Elon Musk has admitted or has said, that's probably the most unscientific statement one can make. Science is not supposed to be a dogma. It's always supposed to allow open inquiry. There's no such thing as settled science in that sense. You could have a lot of confidence in what we know thus far, but it's always open to critique and reconsideration. So, or somebody says, I believe in the separation between church and state. You notice that's a creed. Right? I believe in one one God, the Father Almighty. This person is saying, I believe in the separation between church and state. It's not scientifically proven or anything. It's a dogma in that sense. It's an unproven absolute truth. What we're finding more and more is that secularism has no sustainable sacred. A secular globalist world rooted in scientific rationalism has no sustainable sacred. And this is one of the reasons why the secular modern world is collapsing. And to flesh that out even more, what do we mean it has no viable sacred? Well, it's sacred, ironically, is rooted in this notion of doubt and skepticism. Scientific rationalism, which is the sanctity, the sacred of modern society. Scientific rationalism is rooted in doubt and skepticism. That's why there's always open inquiry. And by the way, that's to its credit. Thank God for it. But that's why the ancients never even dreamed of making scientific rationalism the sacred, the foundation, because they knew, or at least they intuitively sensed, that if doubt is your fundamental disposition towards reality, right? To flesh that out, Science by its nature always asks, well, how do I know? How do I know? That's the doubt. That's the skepticism. Prove it, right? And supposedly, I start with doubt, skepticism. I form a hypothesis to try to dispel that doubt. I subject that hypothesis to testing to either prove or disprove, right? To either verify or falsify the hypothesis. And then I come up with a conclusion. And supposedly that conclusion dispels the doubt if verification was the end result of the experiment. The problem with that, if you take that to its nth degree, if you sanctify that as the foundation of your society, if doubt and skepticism is my foundation, then eventually I'm going to doubt and be skeptical towards science itself. That's inevitable. And that's what we've already seen that. That's why we have now more and more postmodern sentiments. Modernity, rooted in doubt and skepticism via the scientific method, is now giving way to what's called postmodernism, where populations are going back to religion, race, region, culture, custom, tradition as their basis for the social order, not this one-size-fits-all scientifically rationalist system. And so many scholars would agree that what we're seeing today, the anomaly in the modern globalist world, is that it had a sacred, namely scientific rationalism, that enthroned doubt and skepticism in such a way that the doubt and skepticism are now eating away and destroying confidence in scientific rationalism as the one true system by which all politics and economics can be reconfigured around. And so the modern world simply doesn't have a sustainable sacred. And that is evoking this profound need for populations to go and find a viable sacred by which to build a viable society and a lasting society. And that is partly what is propelling the world away from globalist modernism towards a more post-globalist, postmodern, and yes, traditionalist way of life. If modernity does not provide a viable sacred, then we have to go back to pre-modern beliefs and practices to root and to rediscover a sacred that's viable, that gave us 1,000 years of civilization prior to the modern world and promises to give us 1,000 years going forth hence. There you go, gang. Love it.
Hey gang, this is a clip from the videos that I upload exclusively to my Insiders Club community. To watch the rest of this analysis and hear all my uncensored takes on all the important news and trends of the day, join our movement of courageous patriots standing against big tech. Click below and join right now to become a part of our community of thousands of patriots all over the world. Join the movement now at insidersclub.turleytalks.com, and I'll see you over there.